Imagine this. You invest hundreds of thousands of dollars into what you think is your ideal home. Your home where your family will grow, laugh, and make memories for generations. You envision security, bliss, and a future that's yours to mold. But what if all that you've invested doesn't give you control, doesn't give you power, and instead becomes a platform for someone else to assert over your family? This is the horrifying truth that Janelle Brown encountered when she invested $820,000 into Coyote Pass. Something that was a dream turned out to be an emotional and financial nightmare, and the tale behind it will leave you speechless. Janelle Brown, the second wife of the notorious Brown family, has long been the devoted and nurturing mother who does it all for her family. When the Brown family decided to relocate from Utah to Las Vegas, everyone knew the motive. They wanted a larger house with more room to fit their expanding family. Coyote Pass, an expansive estate, held out the promise of space, comfort, and the opportunity for the family to live in one place together. Janelle recognized this as a chance not only for her kids but for the whole family. When the topic of paying for the new home came up, she took the courageous step of donating $820,000 of her personal funds. To most, that's life-altering money. To Janelle, it was an expression of her dedication, a means to provide her children with a lovely home, and a means of sustaining a sense of security and control in the family. But the dream she had at Coyote Pass wasn't the reality. As soon as they moved in, Janelle began to see things change. Little things, such as how the shared areas of the home would be used, who had which bedroom, and even how the chores would be divided, started to indicate a change in control. Not right away, but it was happening. Robyn, Cody's newest wife, was assertively but subtly taking over the control of these things. Picture being able to see someone else, who didn't put nearly as much in, gradually take over your home, your money, your dream, your family. That's what occurred to Janelle, and it hurt more than anyone could have ever thought. Janelle attempted to deal with these issues diplomatically at first, hoping that her input and extended dedication to the family would be valued. She hoped her voice would mean something, but she ended up being consistently ignored or overruled. Family gatherings, which otherwise should have been celebratory, began to become strained. Even mundane interactions became tainted with passive displays of dominance by Robyn. Every choice, every word, every look, Janelle sensed the power changing hands before her very eyes. It was a living nightmare in slow motion, and there was nothing she could do to prevent it. Janelle became increasingly frustrated as months went by. Projects that had been shared equally now skewed in one direction. Robyn's opinions and preferences became dominant. Janelle, who had invested a great part of her personal finances, began to feel invisible within the very house she contributed towards. The monetary contribution she made, which should have provided a security and sense of authority, became an indicator of the power of Robyn instead. Money doesn't always buy influence. Sometimes it only serves to point out the disparity of power. Janelle was learning that lesson the hard way, and it hurt worse than anybody could have conceived. The financial pressure wasn't just about control or money, it was about family dynamics. Cody, the father figure, tended to defer to Robyn, maybe because she brought money into the household. Maybe because she had such a strong personality. Whatever the reason, the effect was the same. Janelle felt excluded and ignored. Her household role that she had worked hard to build for so many years felt diminished, and with every passing day, the dream that she had worked so hard for grew harder to identify. As the months turned into weeks, tensions on the show became apparent. Janelle's frustration, tempered by quiet fury, was on full display. Viewers could notice the way she held herself. The sneaky glances of hurt when Robyn's voice rang out in preference to everyone else's, and the times her children had to try and find a way around these taut relationships. The difference between what she wanted and what lay before her at Coyote Pass was stark. Within the first year of the new home, Janelle's dream had become a constant battle. Her $820,000 investment hadn't purchased her control. It had amplified the widening gap between her and Robyn. What could have been a refuge for her family became a location where she was consistently powerless, frustrated, and overlooked. Even as she attempted to regain balance and keep her dignity intact, the psychological pressure of the moment weighed heavily upon her. Janelle's tale is more than about money, it's about trust, expectation, and the intricate web of family life in one home, compounded by the stresses of polygamy and public opinion. Consider this: someone comes into your family home, and before you know it, they are making the important decisions, laying down the law, and subtly taking charge of the whole household. This was the reality Janelle Brown had to contend with when Robyn inserted herself in Coyote Pass. Robyn didn't merely move in, she ascended to the top, and the effect on Janelle and the other wives was instant, sensational, and transformative. From the moment that the Brown family moved into Coyote Pass, it was apparent that Robyn Brown was no typical addition to the household. In contrast to the other wives, with whom they already had established routines and duties, Robyn brought with her a blend of financial means, confidence, and clout that positioned her favorably. The initial observation many picked up on was her dominance when it came to money and household operations. Although Janelle had invested $820,000 of their money into the property, Robyn's participation went beyond financial investment. She possessed the strategic thinking to make decisions, whether room assignment, schedule coordination, or even running family events. Cody, depending on Robyn's wisdom and guidance, would often fall back on her decisions, sometimes without asking Janelle or the other wives. Pretend to watch someone else, less experienced and less invested, quietly assume control of your house and your family. That is what transpired as Robyn's power increased, silent, steady, and impossible to ignore. With weeks gone by, the imbalance intensified. Family meetings that previously involved collaborative discussions were now tilting in favor of Robyn's views. Decisions regarding chores, meals, and even family excursions tended to gravitate toward Robyn's choices. Janelle, expecting her input to translate into voice, discovered that her ideas were ignored or shot down. Robyn's ascension was not forceful. It was subtle, even tactical. She knew how to work around the family dynamics, resonate with Cody's tastes, and win his confidence. Through this, she became the wife who could effectively manage the home and the family finances, even if it was at the expense of others feeling pushed to the periphery. Power is not always boisterous. Sometimes it is quiet, thoughtful, and unstoppable. Robyn's ascension in the Brown family was just that. A quiet coup that left Janelle wondering where she belonged in her own house. The emotional toll on Janelle was significant. She had imagined a life at Coyote Pass, where all the wives contributed equally, shared responsibilities fairly, and made decisions together. Instead, she found herself constantly negotiating for space, respect, and acknowledgement. Every decision Robyn influenced, every household rule she set, reminded Janelle that her investment had not translated into the control she expected. Even the kids picked up on the tension. Casual chats during dinner sometimes revealed tenuous favoritism towards Robyn. Her views carried greater authority with Cody, and her choices quietly influenced family habits. Janelle saw the dynamic changing in ways that made her feel shortchanged and emotionally spent. When another person's voice begins to take over your house, it's not only infuriating, it's heartbreaking. For Janelle, each of the family decisions Robyn had a hand in making was a reminder of the control she'd lost and the dream she'd invested in being taken away. Robyn's reach went as far as minute details, from who slept in which bedroom to how the kids' schedules worked. Her decisions started to dictate every day. Cody, seemingly oblivious to the emotional toll on Janelle, usually sympathized with Robyn, taking her opinion to maintain order in the house. This made the imbalance obvious, in which Robyn's opinion weighed higher than that of Janelle's or any other wife's. While Janelle tried to assert herself, the situation was complicated by her emotional attachment to the home and her children's well-being. She didn't want conflict for the sake of the family, yet she couldn't ignore the reality. Robyn had quietly become the most influential person at Coyote Pass. Onlookers witnessed the drama unfolding on television. Janelle's fight was evident on her face. The subtle breaths, the angry silences, every detail spoke of a wife who had sacrificed everything and seen another person take over. The emotional tension was real, and everyone could see that Robyn's ascension to power had nothing to do with control but everything to do with influence, game, and position. The monetary aspect came into play as well. Although Janelle had invested a lot, Robyn's being able to control finances and use her position meant that choices usually went in her direction. It was an ever-present reminder that money does not always equal control, and that positional power in the intricate family situation can trump even the greatest investment. By the end of that time, there was no doubt Robyn had emerged as the figurative center at Coyote Pass, and Janelle's position, though still significant, had been diminished in terms of visibility and power. The emotional implications of that change were profound, producing tension, frustration, and resentful silence that would continue throughout the remainder of the family's saga. Janelle's experience serves as a strong reminder that family lives are multifaceted, and even great investments cannot always guarantee the influence or respect one hopes for. Robyn's ascent to dominance at Coyote Pass is a tale of strategy, subtlety, and emotional agonies of living in a polygamist home, a tale which continues to intrigue audiences and inspire discussion. Imagine living in a house you helped build, seeing someone else quietly assume control, and feeling helpless as every choice, every utterance, every gesture seems to benefit them. That's precisely what Janelle Brown went through at Coyote Pass. The very home she was hoping would be the source of joy and safety was a pressure cooker of feelings, aggravations, and unspoken sorrow. And when tensions such as these seethe, sooner or later they boil over and cannot be ignored. By the time Janelle had settled in full at Coyote Pass, the emotional toll of living under Robyn's increasing dominance was impossible to discount. It wasn't a matter of money, or who dictated the decisions in the home, it was a matter of day-to-day fact that she was being edged out of the house she had helped to pay for. Every dinner, every family gathering, and even ordinary conversations came to have subtext. Janelle was always a patient and devoted wife and mother, but even the most level-headed individual has a breaking point. Robyn's behind-the-scenes but assertive control of Cody and the family resulted in Janelle's voice being silenced or ignored. Minor choices, such as what the kids would have for dinner, or how the family would spend Saturday and Sunday, became a constant reminder of her lack of control. Picture having someone else control the life you created for your children. Picture the frustration, the helplessness, the simmering anger deep inside you. That's the everyday existence Janelle lived at Coyote Pass, and it was tearing her apart. As months became weeks, the stress mounted. Janelle attempted to stand up for herself, seeking compromises that would keep the peace and respect her efforts. But nothing seemed to work. Robyn's pull was strong and cunning. She learned how to manipulate Cody's choices and nudge the home in her direction. Janelle was stuck between desiring harmony and requiring validation, a delicate act that strained her emotion. The stress also hit the children. They could feel the change in authority and tension. Fightings during meals, silent showdowns in corridors, and discreet omissions from activities started leaving imprints on the younger members of the family. Janelle's heart hurt as she attempted to protect her children from the tension, while struggling with her own disillusionment. Even within a home designed for love and family, conflicts over power can make the most mundane moments into emotional skirmishes. For Janelle, laughter was replaced with sighs, joy was replaced with frustration, and peace was elusive. Family celebrations, once times of happiness and bonding, became arenas for conflict. Minor spat over household tasks or bedroom arrangements turned into all-out emotional battles. Caught most often in the middle was Cody, who struggled to remain neutral. His habit of appeasing Robyn, either through financial support or perhaps due to her persuasive abilities, left a clear imbalance that made Janelle feel invisible. Each interaction was a negotiation, each choice a possible war zone. Janelle's patience was strained every day, and Sister Wives viewers could glimpse the quiet but clear indication of frustration and sorrow. The tension was not always audible. It was in the silences, the sighs, the sidelong looks, and the moments when Janelle's efforts were ignored. While another person controls the life you've worked on building, even your smallest wins feel empty. Janelle's fight wasn't just about money, it was about respect, acknowledgement, and the emotional toll of being pushed aside in your own home. Janelle attempted to hold her position as a mother, wife, and family contributor. She tried to assist her children, engage in family activities, and help keep the peace. But the everyday emotional stress was wearing thin. Robyn's dominance and Cody's submission created a challenge each day. The emotional struggles weren't always on public display, but they were fierce and exhausting. Minor arguments about chores became magnified by the burden of unprocessed resentment. Janelle had invested so much, emotionally, financially, and physically, in Coyote Pass, yet she frequently felt helpless. With every accommodation made for Robyn's choices, it reinforced the tilt in power, reminding Janelle of the increasing imbalance within the home. To the viewers of the show, this time was interesting because it portrayed the human aspect of polygamy and family life. It was not merely about money or real estate. It was about emotions, respect, and dealing with complex emotional scenarios. Janelle's frustrations were understandable to anyone who has ever felt frustration, being ignored, or having no power despite efforts. By the culmination of this phase, it was evident that Coyote Pass, Janelle's dream house, had turned into an emotional crucible. The breakdown of Janelle could be seen in her mannerism, on her face, and even in her movements within the house. The house, which was supposed to be a refuge, had turned into one that demanded forbearance, grit, and emotional endurance each day. Janelle's Session 3 narrative illustrates the high stakes of family life, the cost to one's emotional well-being of money spent without control, and the harsh reality of living at another person's mercy. It's a reminder that even in the best-laid situations, emotion and human relationships can reap unforeseen challenges, tension, and heartbreak. $820,000. That's the eye-popping sum Janelle Brown spent on Coyote Pass, a house that she dreamed would be a haven for her family. But here's the thing, her money didn't buy her power, didn't earn her respect, and instead was used as a weapon that empowered someone else. This is not just about dollars, it's about trust, power, and heartache. And the story is more appalling than most can even imagine. The true nature of fiscal power and control soon became evident at Coyote Pass. Although Janelle had put an enormous amount towards the dream house for the family, she soon appreciated that money did not necessarily translate into control. Robyn, whose donations and strategic placements had gradually but consistently been on the rise, appeared to have the power that Janelle had assumed would be hers. Initially, Janelle attempted to overlook it, believing that her contribution to financing the property would automatically lend her voice authority in family deliberation. But the more time they spent at Coyote Pass, the more obvious it grew. Robyn's place had created an imbalance, and Janelle found herself relegated to the sidelines in the very residence she had helped facilitate. Think about investing almost $1 million in a house, thinking it would safeguard the future of your family, and then finding out that someone else is in charge now. That was Janelle's bitter truth, every day. The monetary shock was not merely one of influence, it was also an emotional one. All of Robyn's decisions, from assigning rooms to conducting daily routines, seemed a reminder that the work Janelle did not give her power. The very money she spent had consolidated Robyn's hold, not gained her space in the family order. Cody, the head, too often yielded to Robyn's ideas, even sometimes without a complete regard for Janelle's. Although this might have been efficient in terms of running a household, its impact on Janelle was staggering. Her own perception of fairness, trust, and investment in the home of her family felt entirely subverted. Money does not necessarily buy respect, influence, or equality. To Janelle, every dollar she spent at Coyote Pass reminded her that her dream was running through her fingers, only for someone else to quietly take over. The imbalance also caused tension not only between Robyn and Janelle, but between the other wives as well. Covert stares, hushed words, and sporadic arguments showcased a home in which influence and money eclipsed years of devotion and commitment. Janelle couldn't help but question decisions, and question why her investment didn't mean she had equal voice, and felt alone in a house that she had helped build. Economic influence also became active in everyday life in Coyote Pass. From domestic timetables to resource Robyn's power grew stronger. Even the children appeared to realize the change, noting that choices tended to fall on Robyn's side. Janelle's anger intensified upon realizing that her input, instead of gaining influence, only served to point out that she had no control. When your money reinforces someone else's power rather than your own, it's not just shocking, it's devastating. Janelle experienced this reality daily at Coyote Pass, fighting to preserve dignity while observing her investment drift into the hands of another. Despite the challenges, Janelle remained committed to her children and the family's well-being. She sought to mediate conflicts, encourage cooperation, and maintain harmony, but the financial dynamics made this increasingly difficult. Robyn's ability to influence Cody and the family's day-to-day life meant that Janelle's efforts often went unnoticed, or were overridden. The tension became so great that even small decisions were emotionally charged. Deciding who should deal with particular responsibilities, how work around the house was allocated, or how planning schedules should be arranged, turned into battlegrounds. Janelle's sense of justice and investment conflicted with the fact that Robyn's authority had increased disproportionately, leading to continued stress and emotional exhaustion. On a larger scale, Janelle's financial shock also uncovered the nuances of power in polygamous families. It wasn't merely a question of how much money was spent, it was a matter of strategy, leverage, and relation. Robyn's strategic positioning enabled her to take advantage of both emotional and economic leverage, leaving Janelle and others scrambling to find their place in a new, complex family pecking order. This was a personal issue for Janelle, but it also became an interesting narrative for the audience. It showed how money, influence, and power can cross each other in strange ways, causing tension, frustration, and emotional turmoil even within a family that attempts to operate as a team. The fans could sense the disappointment in Janelle's face, in her voice, and in the pauses, the sighs, and the silence where the inequality was most apparent. By the end of the session, the financial reality was evident. Janelle's $820,000 investment had not provided her with the level of influence she had anticipated. Rather, it had redistributed power to Robyn, making the home a place in which one wife's voice rang out, and the other struggled to stay in view and be heard. The emotional significance of this epiphany was huge, and it served to drive home the central reality of the Brown family tale. Money can alter things, but it doesn't always purchase the respect or the fairness we desire. Sometimes, even your best intention, your hard work, and your biggest investments can result in heartbreak. Envision placing your heart, your money, and your trust in a dream house, only to have someone else quietly move in and leave you scrambling to find your spot. That's what happened with Janelle Brown at Coyote Pass, an $820,000 nightmare that taught her about power, family, and resiliency. And though the tale is heartbreaking, it's also a tale of strength and courage. By then, Janelle had already absorbed the financial and emotional reality of Coyote Pass. Money doesn't always work as a means of control, and being faithful doesn't always bring recognition. Even as Robyn became the alpha voice in the home, Janelle needed to adjust to this new family structure and safeguard her kids and her integrity. For Janelle, the struggle was emotional and strategic. Every exchange with Robyn and Cody was a think-through moment. She needed to stand up for her children, establish herself within the home, and command respect, all without sparking conflict that would fuel the tension. Her skill at staying calm, being patient, and being thoughtful was one of her greatest assets during this trying time. Despite the betrayal and heartache, Janelle was not willing to allow the nightmare to define her. She had to draw on strengths she didn't know was there, for herself and for her children. The experience also gave Janelle a new insight into family dynamics. She learned that power in a home is not necessarily about money or inputs. It's about relationships, strategy, and emotional intelligence. Robyn's subtle takeover of power emphasized the role of social and emotional navigation, while Janelle's journey reminded her of the importance of resilience and patience. Janelle also needed to get in touch with her frustration and disappointment. It was not pleasant watching someone else, with less financial investment, have control over her home, but she decided to take control of the things she could. Her relationship with her children, the amount of time she spent creating memories, and the mood she set for her family. When your dream is overshadowed, the hardest thing isn't losing control. It's finding a way to protect what matters most. For Janelle, that meant her children, her values, and her dignity. In spite of the difficulty, Janelle started to change her method. She learned to fight her battles, speak when it counted, and stay calm even in heated situations. Her capacity to rise above fight and look at the bigger picture is what made her able to stay a steady figure within the house, even though Robyn's influence increased. Her own experience also struck a chord with viewers. Few viewers failed to be impressed with her capacity to combine emotional strength with patience, understanding the nuances of existing in a polygamist family, where influence and power are not always tied to financial investment or longevity. Janelle's life was a great testament to endurance, strategy, and emotional intelligence, teaching lessons far outside of Coyote Pass walls. Janelle's story teaches us that true strength isn't about controlling others, it's about controlling your own response, protecting what matters, and staying true to yourself, even in the most difficult circumstances. By the time she finished her stay at Coyote Pass, Janelle had defined what it means to be powerful. She might not have ruled the house, and she might not have gotten the last word in every debate, but she had emotional strength, integrity, and a close relationship with her children. In so many ways, this was a greater victory than financial control. Her tale also has a larger lesson for life. Occasionally, the things we believe are setbacks turn out to be a chance to improve, accommodate, and realize inner resilience. Janelle's Coyote Pass nightmare wasn't merely a tale of money lost or emotional discouragement. It was a reaffirmation of people's ability to survive, withstand, and hold on to dignity in the midst of daunting adversity. As viewers reflect on her experience, it's clear that Janelle's journey is both heartbreaking and inspiring. While Robyn may own the kingdom, Janelle has mastered the art of navigating it with grace, patience, and strength, a legacy that her children and fans alike will remember for years to come. Her $820,000 nightmare at Coyote Pass ultimately became a story of resilience, showing that even when circumstances seem unfair, it's possible to protect what truly matters and emerge stronger. Janelle's experience reminds us all that family, love, and dignity are far more valuable than control or money, and that true power often comes from within.